State Assemblymember Daniele Monroe-Moreno. Tell me more about Danielle that people maybe don't know.
Wow, I have been serving now in the state legislature for almost 10 years. And before that, I was with the city of North Las Vegas for 20 years as an officer. So I think almost everything there is to know about me is out there.
Okay.
But you and I are meeting for the first
Yes,
time.
we are.
So I'll let you know about Danielle.
Yes,
My life started in foster care. I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. I was adopted into an amazing family. My father was serving in the military, he was in the Air Force. My mom was a small business owner. She had cancer at an early age and they were unable to have children. And even after adopting me, my parents continued to be foster parents. And there was never a child that entered our home that was a foster child. They were their children. And you never aged out of our home. You might age out of the system,
Right.
but not out of my parents' home. Once you were there, and you became family. They taught me that we, if we take the time to get to know each other, we as people are more alike than we are different. And to prove that, they gave me 3 sets of godparents. I have a white set of godparents who are Catholic, a black set of godparents who are Baptist, and an interracial set of godparents with different religious beliefs. Because I had no one near me that shared my same DNA. They taught me that family is more than just your DNA. And if you give yourself an opportunity to have conversation, you'll learn that we have a lot more in common than we don't. My parents were people who advocated. They were always at marches and city council meetings and things, protesting for one thing or another. And I said that I wasn't going to be that person. But I grew up and became worse because I ran for office. But my dad was always advocating for veterans issues. My mom was advocating for children's rights issues and healthcare issues. And as an officer with the city of North Las Vegas, I found myself in a position where the city at that time wasn't doing some of the things they could be doing. And I felt ways that we could do things better. And my mom had always taught me that if you see a problem, try to fix it and have a solution, but a backup plan to the backup plan for that solution. So I was always at city council saying, hey, this is wrong, but this is how we can make it better.
Right.
And especially when the city was thinking about closing down the jail. And there was a memorandum of understanding that the city had entered into with the union, and they chose not to honor that memorandum of understanding. But those were not just officers, those were not just city employees, those were also North Las Vegas residents that we were putting out of work by not honoring that memorandum of understanding. So, as an employee and as a representative with the North Las Vegas Police Association, I testified for those officers in court against our city and won back those officers' jobs just for that time period that would honor their memorandum of understanding, but then also worked really hard to help those officers find jobs with other agencies. So who is Danielle? She's been a fighter, not a public servant, and a fighter for justice, not a politician.
What do you think? So you of course have a lot of experience out in North Las Vegas. What do you think right now is the biggest challenge in the city?
Well, when I'm at the doors talking to constituents or in the grocery store or at the gas station, it's the cost of everything is just so high.
Right.
You know, housing's probably the biggest issue. Affordable housing, attainable housing, but for some people in North Las Vegas, it's the move-up housing. They're in a relatively good position, but they've been waiting for that move-up housing product that they don't feel is there in North Las Vegas. It's the cost of food at the grocery store, and right now it's the cost of gas.
Right.
I was speaking to an employer last week that a number of her employees are from the city of North Las Vegas, but her facilities aren't in North Las Vegas. We were talking about her moving to the city, and she's very excited about moving into the city because some of her employees can't get to work because of gas, but because of the impact of tariffs and the cost of doing business, she can't give them the raise that they need to put the extra money into their gas tanks to get to work. She says, so how can we work together so maybe I can build out another facility in North Las Vegas to keep my employees employed, but also to keep her business going. But it's the economy, everything about the economy, childcare, all that.
So that kind of leads me to a question I was going to ask later, but I'll ask it now. So affordable housing, of course, that's a big priority.
Yes,
You
it is.
mentioned it. A person I know, she's a single mom. kind of drowning in debt. She has student loans, the car payment, and she's can't really put much down on a home, and she's really been, shut out by these 6 and 7% interest rates. So if someone like that in North Las Vegas was experiencing that, how could you help them?
So I think one of the biggest things in North Las Vegas is the battle between the regular person that wants to be a homeowner, move from a rental property to become a homeowner, and their battle with our corporate um, home buyers that are coming in and buying out neighborhoods, but also building just rental neighborhoods. My daughter, when she was looking for a home, she doesn't make a ton of money, right? And she's a single mom with two kids,
Right.
working full time, and was a full time student at the time. She was competing every time she got to a location that she thought, this is it, I can afford this. She was outbid, and she was mainly outbid by corporations coming in, buying up housing products. And it's, as a city council member and mayor of the city, it's, you set the tone of what's acceptable in your city. And saying, if we put at every decision, whether it's home ownership or a new business coming in, if we put our citizens first at our thought process for every decision that we make, and then finding out, talking to the realtors and the home builders, how can we work together to make sure that North Las Vegas residents and people who want to make North Las Vegas their home can come in and afford to buy here? What are those products that we can build that would make it more affordable? But what are those programs that are out there to help that first-time home buyer actually get into the home?
Have you had conversations with the home builders? Have you guided people to maybe where a program might be? For instance, the person that I know who just cannot afford a home right now.
One of the roles as a state legislator is you get a call about everything, whether it's a pothole in the street or the grocery prices or home building. And it has been connecting families with resources that are out there. At the state level, we were able to help at one time with rental assistance and eviction diversion programs. So it's connecting people with those services. And it's not always offered at the city, but it could be at the county level, and there could be a federal program. But it's making sure that, when a call is made, that I make the next call to try to connect that resident to the resources that they need. And, we may not always have the answer, but we can always help them get to the right answer.
And it's not only housing; it's rent. A senior or young people.
Yes.
Who just just starting out and not making a lot of money. I mean, how do you afford, 12, 13, 14, $1,500 a month for rent?
Oh my goodness, tell me about it. Serving in the legislature, my rent was more expensive than my mortgage.
Yeah,
It's kind of
yeah,
crazy,
good example,
right?
right?
But my seniors, and what I heard from seniors, in the last few years, some of their rents have gone up $400, $500, $600, but their income hasn't. They're on fixed incomes. So I know there's been conversation in the community about rent caps, and I understand why people would push for a rent cap. But when my parents passed, I became the owner of their home, and I no longer lived in Tucson. But I knew how my parents had raised me. You're supposed to give back. So instead of selling that home, we fixed the home up and we rented it. And I rented it to a single mom with children, and she lived in that house and paid the rent. And I knew rents around us were going up, but why should we raise our rent?
Right.
Our expenses were taken care of. I knew her income hadn't gone up. So I chose, because I thought it was a responsible thing to do, to keep her rent where it was at a rate that she could afford. But I also experienced, when she moved out, what it cost to rebuild that house, to fix it up for the next tenant. So we chose to cap our rent because that was our personal choice. But I understand being a landlord, right? Because there's so many ma and pa landlords, they're not corporations, that a rent cap would hurt them. But what would a rent stabilization plan be for those seniors? So if there is a rent increase, or my veterans, or those low-income families, something that they could adjust and live with, what would that be? I think there's a way to balance the two to make sure that that mom and pop homeowner that happens to be a landlord isn't penalized, but also that the tenant that's living in their properties have any rental increase is something that they can afford and they can budget for.
I was going to ask, and we can maybe stay with that, but I wanted to ask what would be the first thing you would do in your first 30 days. Now, that obviously housing and rent seem like a big topic to you. So, with that topic, what could you do in 30 days, right when you got there, to deal with some of the issues you just mentioned?
So, in those first 30 days, we were coming into a new mayor, a new council member in Ward 3, and a new council member in Ward 1. And I believe that the very first thing we need to do is do an audit of our city, to see where there's gaps in city government and where there are ways that we can help our residents with some of the issues that we were just talking about. I don't know what we can do until I have a better understanding of what those gaps are and making sure that there's transparency in the way that we do and deal with government in the city of North Las Vegas to be more responsive and assisting the residents in our city.
I want to talk about the population boom that we've seen in North Las Vegas, and again, housing gets affected by that as well. First of all, why are so many people moving to North Las Vegas?
Well, it's a beautiful city. Have you not been there?
I've been there. I was just there
all right.
last week.
We have the Ice Age Park. If you haven't been there, you need to go out and see the Ice Age Park. It's the growing place. We're the city that has the land to expand. But we're also the city where we have the VA hospital. We have the land that will house our next UNLV campus. And working on building out the new next hospital. We are the up and growing place, and under my leadership, I hope to make North Las Vegas a destination location. When people use their discretionary income to come to Las Vegas, they come to Las Vegas, and if you ask them, and I've traveled around the country and the world, and you say, I live in North Las Vegas, I'm running for mayor in North Las Vegas, and they're like, isn't that the north end of town? They're like, no, we're our own city. By the end of my 12 years as mayor, I want us to have things that distinguish us from Las Vegas. Fly into Harry Reid, and yes, stop at the Strip and see a show or two, but come out to North Las Vegas and experience everything that we have to offer, from our mature area of North Las Vegas, those more historic areas, to the new Nevada State University campus, and what I hope will be that the UNLV campus and all of the build out there, along with the new theater and a museum in North Las Vegas, things we don't currently have in North Las Vegas.
So with growth, of course, comes police protection, and having to pay for, more officers. How would you pay for more police presence, if you will, as we continue to grow out there?
Well, my career was in law enforcement, almost 30 years, and we have, I feel, an amazing police department and an amazing police chief. But it's not just adding more people to the police department's roles that make a community safe. It's starting with programs that prevent crime in our city, and that's our youth programs and crime diversion programs. So that's after school programs and summer league programs working with the community that would alleviate the need to have more police officers. But as I said, when we do that audit of the city and find where there may be gaps or overages, that's where you find the money for those extra police officers if we find that we need them. But for me, public safety is a more holistic approach, not just police officers on the ground, but it's everything for crime prevention. But it's also getting back to the days that when I was a little girl, my police officer was Officer George. And that's how we knew him, by Officer George. He was in our neighborhood. I would love to get back to the feeling where police officers were our friends. Right now, a fireman has always been the cool guy in the community, right? And everybody loves a fireman. There was a time when people loved their policemen, and I want to get back to that. And that means us being in the community and showing that we are part of the community, not just there when a crime is committed, but we are there all the time. We're there at your schools, we're at your senior centers, we're at your community events. We are part of the community.
With state assembly, is there anything there that you started that you haven't accomplished yet and you want to finish it?
You know what? Thank you for that question. I have truly enjoyed my time in the legislature.
Hmm.
A few of the things that I wanted to work on was maternal health and the state's grants program. The state of Nevada left a lot of money on the table when it came to federal grants. So every session, I had a bill to move our grants program forward, and I am excited about where we're at with that. So I don't think it's unfinished, but there's still more work to be done, and others will carry that torch. With maternal mortality, knowing that Black and brown women die at higher rates in this country than others in childbirth. Why is that? And we didn't have a maternal mortality review board, but we do now because of a bill that I was able to carry. Worked on policies with midwifery and childbirthing centers because we saw during the COVID times, there was times when women had to go into the hospital by themselves to give birth, but we didn't have other options, but we do now. So I'm really excited about that. And I mentioned the Ice Age Park. We had people stealing the fossils from our Ice Age Park in the state part of the park. And I was able to carry the legislation to save those fossils, but also build out that park. So now it's an outside classroom that children from all around the valley can come and enjoy and learn the history of what was here in this valley when it was Vegas Verdes, before it was North Las Vegas. So there's always work to be done in the legislature, but I am proud of the work that I have done. And I'm proud that I'm leaving as the first Black woman to ever be in leadership in the Nevada State Assembly, leaving as Speaker Pro Tem in the Assembly, and the first Black woman to be chair of the Ways and Means Committee, where I was able to champion and shepherd the state from an economic deficit and economic surplus. That gives me a unique talent and skill set to bring back to the city of North Las Vegas, the city where I raised my family, grew my family, where I worked for 20 years. And having that leadership experience, and especially the budgetary experience, back as mayor of my city.
And lastly, so you mentioned the grant money that wasn't used. What happened to it? Did it go back somewhere, or
No,
did it just
the-
was not?
they-
They lost it.
The state wasn't actually asking for it. There were
So it was there.
It was
but
there.
they
There were
didn't ask.
federal grants that people just weren't asking for, or there was competing agencies asking for grants. So we've set up a program where now we have a matching grant program in the state. That was a bill that I had, but it's also having the grants management that people can work together, whether it's a tribal community, city, local governments, or our state government and nonprofits working together. So we're not competing against each other, but working together and collaborating on issues to bring more money into the state. And not just federal grants, there's some private grants that are out there as well.